So the fallout from the Dobbs decision is proving to be a legal, policy, ethical nightmare for everyone. Obviously, patients and pregnant people, number one, but second in line are doctors who are left scratching their heads and consulting lawyers before they do life-saving treatment on their patients. That is happening across the country, and specifically we're gonna look at a case in New Orleans where a Dr. Valerie Williams is joining a lawsuit to contest Louisiana's abortion trigger ban, which went into effect obviously when the Dobbs decision came down, overturning Roe v. Wade. Williams in an affidavit recounts a recent experience that she had with a patient that I just wanna warn is incredibly upsetting, and yet somehow we have to understand this is the world that we're now in. So she writes, when the trigger bans went into effect over the weekend, I experienced firsthand and got brief insight into how these laws would harm Louisiana patients and cause unnecessary trauma and pain. I saw a patient whose water broke at 16 weeks, which is far before viability. There was no way for the pregnancy to continue without putting the patient's health at risk, and the fetus was already starting to deliver. I originally offered to perform a medical procedure called a DNE, dilation evacuation, to quickly and safely end the pregnancy. A DNE would have lasted approximately 15 minutes. After our consultation, the patient expressed that this was her preferred option since she was already traumatized from her experience and felt that an induction, which would require labor and delivery of the fetus, would be too much for her. Once I left the room, however, I heard from my hospital's lawyer that I could no longer perform the requested procedure because the trigger bans had gone into effect. Going back into the hospital room and telling the patient she would have to be induced and push out the fetus was one of the hardest conversations I ever had. She then describes a little bit of the labor. She was forced to go through the painful hours-long labor to deliver a non-viable fetus despite her wishes and best medical advice. Quote, she was screaming not from the pain, but from the emotional trauma she was experiencing, the doctor wrote. The woman then hemorrhaged nearly a liter of blood, according to the affidavit, but she survived. So cool. Finally, this doctor writes, the trigger bans have turned a hospital room and a medical procedure into a legal consultation, all while patients' health and safety are at risk. She writes, this was the first time in my 15-year career I could not give a patient the care they needed. This is a travesty. So, right, doctors are being put in these positions. Doctors are having to consult lawyers in the middle of these decision-making processes. An attorney, Joanna Wright, for the abortion providers in Louisiana, said the state's abortion ban is putting doctors in incredibly difficult situations. Under the new law, doctors and other providing abortions are subject to a 10 to 15-year jail terms, with exceptions only for medically futile pregnancies and abortions done to, quote, prevent the death or substantial risk of death to the pregnant woman. In other words, how much hemorrhaging is too much hemorrhaging? I don't know. They don't know. There's multiple other cases on this. Another doctor in Wisconsin saying that a physician in her practice contacted her the week after the Supreme Court decision, and as she treated a patient with a ruptured ectopic pregnancy. Again, 1 in 50 pregnancies. She knew exactly what she had to do because the woman was bleeding and was clearly gonna die if nothing was done, Zeal said. But she wasn't sure what she needed to do to document, to be sure she wouldn't be charged with a felony. So then, to protect herself from criminal prosecution, Zeal's colleague, Ilana Winstrom, turned to an emergency room physician who treated the patient and a radiologist who reviewed the ultrasound showing the rupture, a process that took more than an hour. It turned my attention away from the bedside of the critical care patient toward documentation, Winstrom said. So in other words, Zeal is there. This is the doctor in Wisconsin. She's got to make this decision. There's a ruptured ectopic pregnancy, but am I gonna get sent to jail for doing this procedure? Instead of doing it and helping this patient, she goes and gets 2 different signatures from 2 different other doctors because of the lawyer in the hospital told her to do so. And one of those doctors, Winstrom, said, yeah, I was in a critical care moment, helping another patient. And I had to turn and sign off on this thing that 3 weeks ago was the most normal decision. That is in Wisconsin. We started off talking about what was happening in New Orleans, but it's around the country.
Yeah, so they're literally letting women bleed out. And this is the theoretically pro-life party. If a Republican is talking, that means he's lying. No, when they say pro-life, you know what? Here, one of our viewers wrote in on Super Chat, really good comment on YouTube. Grandma Sunshine Dragon wrote in, Republicans are pro-life only when it's pre-life. I'm gonna amend that a little bit, and I'm gonna use that from now on. They're not pro-life, they're pre-life, okay? But even then, it's like, it's in the fallopian tubes. It has no chance of survival. You can't possibly have a baby delivered from the fallopian tubes. It has to be in the uterus. I have to explain these things to Republicans. And they're like, yeah, don't care. Oh, it's not alive? It has no chance of being alive. Yes, but does it oppress the woman? Oh, good, check, no problem. As long as the woman is oppressed and big government controls her body and takes away her freedom, if you're a Republican, you love government tyranny. And so you're in for it, you're in for it. Oh, she's bleeding out on the table and we've told the doctor that they can't save her life. Yes, that's how a Republican reacts. These are facts.
Yeah,
that's the law.
I would even go further.
They're gonna die all across the country, bleeding out on surgery tables because the Republicans want them to. Don't tell me you're not in favor of it if you pass the law in favor of it.
Yeah, and I would even go further and say they're not just pre-life, they're pro-death, they're pro-rape, and they're pro-incest. They're pro-death, pro-rape, and pro-incest because when you take abortion rights away, even in those cases, and once again, the carve-outs mean nothing in practice, right? Because how many times have oh yeah, rapist's been caught and just in time to, have an abortion. Wait a minute, what? Yeah, our legal system works real quick like that. So you get that carve out for abortion when you've got a 3-year-old child. But I'm saying they are making excuses for their disgusting misogynist, pervacious self, straight up, their incestuous, rapey party. That's what they want. And if women have to die so they can get sort of a pass for rape or incest, then that's cool too. They want that. The second thing I want to say is, I guess I'm tired of doctors consulting lawyers, to be honest with you. Since when? And why are we this? And this is the problem with our medical system generally, is how in every step of the way, hospitals, they are so worried about being sued. Our country is insanely litigious, and now you have that being applied to women in the most basic reproductive health situations. And I'm just tired of all of these. Should we? Shouldn't we? I think the moral thing is to do it. Look, I understand that people's licenses might be at risk. I understand that you might, someone might sue you. So what? Do it. Just do it because you are saving a life and that is what the job is there to do. Obviously, everyone else, lawmakers, activists, everyone has our role to play in terms of changing these laws, in terms of expanding the court, in terms of standing up to these bans. But my God, in the immediate, can we just say that you just go ahead and do the procedure will save these people's lives?
Look, man, I don't know what we're gonna do and how we're gonna do it, but we're not gonna let any doctors go to jail. No. If Oklahoma, Texas, Alabama, Mississippi, wherever you are, wherever you're in a Taliban state in America, and they try to put a doctor in jail, we're gonna come surround the goddamn building.
Yes.
Okay. No, doctors who save lives are heroes. They're not villains, you monsters. Okay. And to Francesca's point about helping rapists, you say, oh, come on, guys, you guys are being outrageous. Oh, we let women die on the surgery table because we're pro-life, but you guys are being outrageous with your rhetoric. No, you're being outrageous by causing the deaths of so many women that is gonna happen now. You're being outrageous by not letting a 10-year-old get an abortion after she's been raped. Okay, so, but Francesca's being literal because think about this, guys. If some guy hates a particular woman in a Taliban state in America, that's the red states, and says, oh, you know what? Not only am I gonna rape her, but I'm gonna try to get her pregnant, so she has to have my baby and take care of it for the rest of her life. The Republican Party will help him do that. That's a fact.
Yep.
They won't help him rape her, okay? But they'll help his dream of making that poor woman carry his child and take care of his child. So don't tell me Republicans don't help rapists. That's what's happening. So I'm not the one that passed laws that's saying, hey, if you get raped, we're gonna help the rapist so that you carry the child. I didn't pass those laws. If you're a Republican, look at yourself in the mirror. You passed those laws. If you're uncomfortable with it, then change it. If you're comfortable with it, then own it and know that you're the party that helps rapists and helps kill women.
Helps pedophiles. Hey, let's just addendum to that, because incest by nature is rape. Also, familial rape, pretty bad, pretty terrible. Also pedophilia. So there you go, all in one. You got the anti-pedophile party who now defending pedophiles, allowing them to get away with doing disgusting acts to their family members. You guys did that. Republicans did that.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.